Hi and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going really off topic completely. Just something that kind of clicked over me the other day. I was watching Tech Moan and he was saying how his channel started up really on the purchase of just one item, which was this little DV video player he bought, this little miniature DV player he bought out of Sainsbury's because it was on a half price sale. He bought that. It gives him the means to go and start filming and put his channel together. Also, I mean, I've watched these videos many times. Each one of them I find them fascinating, and I'd watch them all again if I, had a spare afternoon. Always flick through and see, even though I've seen them many times and watched a few of these videos, especially like obviously the old HiFi ones, etc. But yeah, he's talking about that camera, and also he did mention, if you do watch these videos, you probably recall he mentioned that he started the channel also because he kind of got fed up commuting backwards and forwards to work on the train. He thought there was something else he could do, and he kind of took a chance, left work I think, and started the channel up. And obviously over the years he's been going, it's evolved and got into a really big channel. But if you go back right to the basic of Tech Moan and most other YouTube channels as well, you'll say that they start off really basic and they seem to work their way up, get more confidence, etc. More involved, more professional as the years go on, and that's the case with many channels. Anyway, that was sitting in the back of my mind, and I was sitting here still unpacking really, because we're like, a few of you may know that we've only just moved and there's still plenty of boxes to unpack, still some in the loft, etc. And I come across this book, Computer and Video Games. Now this was a supplement from a magazine called Computer Video Games. This would have been around about the 80s, this would have started somewhere around there. It would have been in the 80s anyway, Computer Video Games. And I was flicking through here, seeing all the systems that I had in the past and all the systems that I didn't have in the past. And in fact, I do get a mention in this book, believe it or not. In there it says, where are we, if I can read it? Not a massive mention, it just says Mick Yates, well that's me, and it says, for the loan of all the old games until someone bought them all, or bought the lot. And I did have a lot. We'll talk about that later on in another video. But yeah, Dave Kersell, his name is, the bloke who come round from this magazine. And when he says someone bought a lot, I think he may have been talking about himself, because he did buy a lot off me, that's for certain. Yeah, we'll come back to that later. I've got a little screen thing here going. The noise is a bit noisy PC, but I'm going to come to that as well. Just going to show you something on there very quickly. But yeah, I just want to talk about how I kind of got this channel started, then we're going to go on to me talking about, you may find it interesting from how I started into video games. And I've kind of stopped at the PlayStation 3, Xbox 360. I've got a Switch because you can't, you've got to play Mario on the Nintendo, you've got to have a Mario game, that's for certain. But I'll talk about why I stopped and why I just stick with Mario now and some games like that kind of thing, or maybe a few racing games. But you may find it interesting if you've kind of jumped in and you started off on a PlayStation 3 or PlayStation 4, and you've not got much history maybe into these old retro consoles, these old games, how it all started. You may just be interested to hear my story, pick up a few interesting bits and a few surprising bits maybe, how much some of these systems actually cost me back then. You'll be surprised, I'll tell you, you'll be surprised how much money I spent on some of these systems and games. But we'll talk about it as we go along. But this next little chapter, I'm just going to talk about how I started the channel up, then we'll go on to the computer games, and me actually returning that Hitachi VCR to get an Atari 2600 console, and that's what kick-started me into my video game kind of experience. Right, as you probably noticed, I've got about 8,000 subscribers now, but we'll talk about them in a minute. They're not all really subscribers per se to this channel as such. You'll get the idea as we go along. But they are proper subscribers, they're not made up ones, that's for certain. Many years ago, I'm into horse racing. I was into horse racing years ago. Used to work in a betting office for 30 odd years, and one thing I will say straight away is if you don't know nothing about gambling and you can't afford it, don't gamble, because you're going to lose your money. It's going to cause heartbreak. Seriously, just don't gamble. Right, I used to work in a betting office many years ago, and I used to be in horse racing and other sports, but horse racing was my forte with my dad. I kind of got it off my dad really. He used to have his own little system, which he did do too bad at, to be honest with you. But yeah, so I was kind of into horse racing, and I bought this battery operated horse racing game, and I'm gonna force it upon you. I'm gonna put that little video on the channel to any of my regular subscribers. I'm gonna have to put it up there because that's part of the channel really, even though it's been taken off and it's elsewhere at the moment, but it will come back to this channel. It gets its few little views. It's a very short video, it's only about a minute or two long. Anyway, I bought this horse racing game, a battery operated Spears Derby Day. And I thought I'd just do a little video of it. This is quite a few years ago now, and with that video I thought just to keep it, make sure I don't delete it or get rid of it. I had a YouTube channel, nothing was there really happening on there at all, just join it really to watch other videos, and I thought I'd stick that video up just for prosperity and just to keep it up there, and I can always return to it and watch that horse racing game once I've sold it or got rid of it, which I usually do most of the time. And that sat there for about 7 years on YouTube, with an odd view here and there. And in the 7-year period, I probably picked up 1,000 views, something like that, and probably about 10, 15 subscribers, something like that. So it's very, very low key. Until one day all of a sudden, an influencer, I'm guessing here, but it must have been an influencer, someone quite famous or something like that, someone had a lot of followers on Twitter, on YouTube or Instagram, something like that, must have mentioned this game somewhere in an article of theirs or on their page, etc. Because from no view, 1 or 2 views, all of a sudden, that a little period of time, it was only about 3 weeks, something like that. I'm guessing a little bit, but I do know the figures near enough. It actually peaked. It's actually peaked at 160,000 views in one day, which was fantastic. It was great. I kind of I didn't realise that. I weren't checking up on it every day. I just backtracked to find that information out. I kind of went on there and I just caught it. 7 years, I probably went on there every 6 months or something just to look at the stuff, and then I'll say, hey, what's happening in my horse racing game, something like that. Weren't really paying much attention, and I was suddenly surprised that I got about 2.5 million hits at the time, something like that, on this horse racing game. So I thought, blimey. I told a colleague at work, and he said to me, why don't you monetise the channel? You could earn some money out of that. So I thought, well, is it worth it? I can't be bothered really. What are you going to get out of that? It's kind of like, so what kind of thing. And the more I thought about it, I thought, well, why not? So I kind of monetised the channel. You have to wait for the procedure to go through, YouTube to send you a code through, etc. That takes a couple of weeks, and by then that peak had come down. Obviously I've missed it. It's come down and it's fizzling out, slowly fizzling out to level off to back to pretty much nothing again. But in that time, I just about got it monetised in that last bit of the peak, just as it's rounding off. And I can't remember exactly how many views I kind of accumulated, but by the time all that had happened, I think I got about nearly 4 million views, 4.5 million views on that particular video. And I just caught it at the end. It's a very short video, and I think YouTube gave me about £90 for that last little trough of viewers watching the video. So I thought, well, that ain't bad, £90 for nothing, all I've done is uploaded a video there. And it kind of sat in the back of my head for a little while. What else could I do? And obviously I was into video games back then, back in the time, and I thought, looking at a load of channels like Mad Little Pixel, MVG I think it is, and a few others, it was hundreds of others, these are bigger channels. I could see that they were putting up content, and I thought, oh, it's so many, thousands upon thousands, literally thousands upon thousands of games channels, people taking clips of games, posting them, etc. I thought, it's just going to get lost in there, it just isn't really worth my time. And I didn't have them consoles with me, I've got rid of them since. This is going to kind of be probably talking about and showing you old games that I used to play on emulators, and I thought it was cheating a bit, so I didn't bother with that. So I sat, and it was still in the back of my mind, and I thought, well, I know a bit HiFi and repairing stuff, etc., but I thought it never really kicked off really, that part of it, and I kind of left that aside. And many years ago I used to work with a bloke, and he used to be into these old black and white films, an old boy, and he used to love watching these old black and white films, saying that these old retro films, these old films, a bit like retro games, retro HiFi, all that kind of stuff. These were the golden years, these are the best years kind of thing. And he used to make me go and buy all these films from, etc., buy them off of eBay and different places, these old black and white films. And I was flicking through the channel, I had that in my mind, I knew about that kind of thing. I was flicking through YouTube and I come across Pizza Flicks. I think I was looking at an old series, trying to find an old series that he used to watch that I thought maybe something up my street. I used to watch an old programme, an old black and white series called Scotland Yard, which now and again is on Talking Pictures. Yeah, it's quite a fascinating, true crime reenactment kind of thing, how they solved crime back then. And I come across Pizza Flicks anyway, and I see he had loads of films and that, and I found out a little bit more about it, and he was a public domain channel, meaning that all them films he had on there were in the public domain. So I kind of researched a little bit into that, and I obviously had some of the films he already had, this bloke had already had them, I had a copy of them here. And also I found, I've done a bit of research and found out I had quite a lot of films. Excuse me, I'm not too sure how many, probably 50 or something like that in total, because I did have a stack of these films. I kept a copy for myself just in case one day I wanted to watch them. And yeah, there's quite a few public domain films that Pizza Flicks never had, and when I searched, it was a quite rare, hard to get hold of films. So I thought what I'll do is I'll upload these films onto YouTube, and I'll start the channel that way. And I did, I didn't do too bad. It kind of crept up, and I got my viewers. And this is how I got my majority of subscribers. You see down the bottom there today, 8,000 something. A good portion of them are still old subscribers expecting me to put up an old black and white film. But I stopped that channel after just a few months really, because YouTube got in contact with me and said, fair enough, this is public domain items, this is in the public domain, and why should you be earning any money out of public domain, which was fair enough. But I did think, I had on art that I did contribute some films there that if it weren't for me, it wouldn't have made it onto YouTube. I was the only person that had that film on YouTube, I really was. So, it's just one of them things. So I let it, so we're going to stop the monetisation, so fair enough. So I just left that channel. If you want to reapply, then by all means, but you're going to have to do some different content. So I thought to make sure that we're not going to get no cross wires here, I deleted all them films off of YouTube, then started off again with this HiFi channel. It's something else. I thought, well, I might as well go in that direction now and see how that goes. And it's slow, don't get me wrong, it's hard work doing all these videos and everything. So today, I thought I'd take a break. Tecmo kind of put a little seed in my head, and picking up this book, this computer video games book, gave me another idea to put this absolutely long video together, just talking about me buying a VCR and exchanging it, and end up getting this ATARI 2600 computer. So let's get on with that. Right, on to the main event. Right, okay, so if we just rewind, the years could be slightly out, the pricing could be slightly out, but it's in the ballpark figure. I can't remember exactly. This is why I'm doing the video again, because when I get a bit older and a bit senile maybe, I'll be able to have a look and think, oh yeah, I remember that, I forgot all about it, kind of thing. So that's another great way of remembering stuff, is actually to upload it to YouTube or something like that. In 10 or 20 years time, you can always reminisce and say, oh, I remember that. All that kind of stuff. So yeah, going back then, this was, like I say, this would have been about 77, 78, somewhere around there. I used to be into HiFi, used to have my own HiFi, try and get as much, whatever I could afford, get the best item I could afford at the time. And don't forget, I had a little job doing hardly anything, earning hardly anything at the time really. But I used to save up as much as I can, or get stuff on credit, plenty of credit stuff back then. I wouldn't do it these days, but back then I used to have so many loans out, buying this, that and the other. It was ridiculous really. But yeah, I used to be into HiFi. I used to dart off. One of my mates used to give me a lift to go and buy some HiFi over the other side of London and all that. I used to give him a drink, and we used to go around there and haggle and buy all that kind of stuff. So I was into that. I had my own little radio stations on a Saturday and Sunday. Obviously, I was working during the week, so Saturday and Sunday I had this little pirate radio station. I used to sit up in my house playing some music, 2 decks, a mixer, a tape recorder, all that kind of stuff. Just in a little room. But I may touch on that later on in another video or something. But yeah, it used to be the good old days, fantastic, the good times kind of thing. So I used to wander into my local town, and used to go in places like Dixon's. Used to be stuck in that Dixon's window looking at every item, fascinated. Used to have the old Pong in there with the 2 controls, one each end. That Pong there, and that was quite expensive. I never actually went and actually bought one of them when they come out, as new, that just arrived on the shelf. I never bought one of them. Yeah, I used to be into tons of other technology, and as soon as it come out, I'd go and try and get it if I could. So we'll come to that as the video progresses. But yeah, so I missed out on that, and I remember going to the Debenhams and seeing that Commodore calculator, that little kind of creamy colour kind of calculator with the LED red display, and that back then was about £70 or £80, that calculator, which would have been a fortune back in the late 70s. Anyway, I progress. So I used to go down a shop in my local high road where I used to live as well, and always glance in the window, used to have all the latest stuff in there, etc. And the video recorder had just come out, and I think the one he had in there at that particular time when I first see it was the Ferguson Video Star, and that retailed for about £750 here in the UK. So it's quite a lot of money back then, obviously. And I thought, well, I fancy one of these video recorders, but it's a bit beyond my price range at the moment. So I'd save up, like I say, I'd get these loans out, I'd start buying and selling some stuff, like, I maybe bought something, I thought I don't need it anymore, I'll sell that. So the money, I kind of trickled a bit of money, and I had about £550, something like that, 500, maybe £600. So I'm still saving up. Anyway, I walked past there one day, and he had this Hitachi one next to the Ferguson one. He managed to get this Hitachi one. Instead of 749, this Hitachi one was 599, pretty similar kind of thing. I think it had a push button thing on the front, pretty much like that. That little thumbnail I got. It's a push button on the front, the old fluorescent clock on that, and you tune in the channels on the side, and you have to do it by kind of like nothing digital, like just moving these little wheels round to tune in the channels. So $5.99, I thought, well, I'm nearly there. It's just saved up enough, and I went down there and I turned up at his shop with £600 in cash and said, I'll have that video recorder, please. Gives it to me. Now, these used to weigh a ton. Now, I knew how everything's were, so I struggled home with it. And I literally had to go through a park to where I lived, and the benches all along. I stopped at every bench, near enough, carrying this through the park, gets it home, and of course, set it all up. Had a tape with it. He gave me a tape with it. I think back then the tapes were about £10 or £15 for a blank cassette, but he did give me a tape with it, I think, at the time. So I was up and running with one tape, with one cassette, and thingy bob. And I remember, I'll never forget it, because it's one of these things that I set it up one day, and the day I got it, actually, not one day, the day I got it, and Coronation Street was coming on about 7:30, whatever it does here in the UK. And I remember my mum used to be cooking the dinner and that, etc. And sometimes miss it, or be doing something else and miss it. So I'm playing record, I've got the Coronation Street on the tape. So there it is. So come about 8:30, 9 o'clock, somewhere around there. My mum would sit down and whatever, and I say, do you want to watch Coronations? No, I didn't say that. I'll tell her I didn't say that. I actually looked it up. She sat down, I quickly pressed play, and Coronation Street come on the TV. And my mum was absolutely amazed. And when I say amazed, she was absolutely amazed. And she said, what are you doing? What are you up to? And I said, this is Coronation Street. I recorded it on there. And she would not believe me that Coronation Street was on this machine on the cassette. She said, you're mucking about. What are you doing? she was getting frustrated, kind of thing. That I wasn't telling her the truth, but I was. The Coronation Street was on this cassette. So she was like, a bit like Wurzel Gummidge, like, completely perplexed, like, kind of thing. But anyway, eventually she got used to it and she knew what it was all about, etc. Anyway, I used to go past that shop quite regularly in that high road where I bought this cassette recorder from, and I was, every day, because I was fascinated what was new. Not that I've run out of money by now, obviously. I bought the video recorder. And he said to me, I popped in there now and again to say hello, because he's quite a friendly shop. Obviously, you're buying stuff, they're going to be friendly, but it's quite a nice little shop as it happens. And he said to me, how are you getting on with your video recorder? I said, yeah, it's all right. I said, but every now and again I get a little glitch, like some of these lines appear, wavy lines and sparkly lines at the bottom, something to do with the tracking normally. I said, it happens. He said, oh, it's the tracking. I said, no, I've done the tracking. It's definitely something wrong with them lines, like, you know what I mean. But I'm not bothered. It's only for a few seconds and it comes away. I'm not bothered at all. I'm happy, like you with me. But he it was such a good shop. He went to me, no. He said, that shouldn't be happening. He said, bring it back. I said, no, I'm happy. No, bring that item back. And I thought, well, bring it back. I lug it all through the park and everything else. So I made one of these trolleys, like, shopping trolleys. So I stacked it in there. I took it back to the shop. Gets down, plugs it in and everything. He said, leave it with me for a day or something. I said, yeah, all right. I went back the next day. He said, yeah, it's faulty. He said, yeah, we see it. He said, no, it's faulty. I wasn't really bothered. So he said, I've got another one here. So I said, oh, right. He said, take this one. So in the trolley, it went back home, had it for a few days. Exactly the same thing. Exactly the same, no different. So I thought it could be my cassette. So I went back to see him. He said, I'll give you another cassette. Try that. He said, but if it's the same, he said, it seems unusual, two of them being the same. Bring it back. I've got another one here as well. Well, fair enough. So gone home, tried it, still doing the same. Back through the park with my trolley, into the shops, give me another one, same scenario, back again, gets down and all that, still the same. I thought, I'm happy, I'm not bothered, I'm still happy with it. But he wasn't. It wasn't even his machine. I'd bought it off him and he wasn't happy. I said, no, he said, no, it's something wrong with it. And then he started kind of convincing me there's something wrong with it. And I thought, oh, well. So he said, bring it back. I took it back. He said, look, I've got no more. We had three and you've gone through all three of them. I've had to send them back, kind of thing. We're going to give you your money back, kind of thing. He said, but can we give it back to you in a credit note? Do you want to exchange it for a credit note rather than cash? Because we haven't got the cashier, kind of thing, you know what I mean? So I said, yeah, I wasn't really bothered, you know what I mean? I wasn't really bothered. And he said, well, there you go, you've got £599 to spend in the shop. So then I thought, well, okay, a kid in a candy store, really. I thought, I'll have one of them, I'll have one of them, and I'll have one of them. And I bought 3 items. I can't remember one of them. I can remember 2 of them. One of them was a little Toshiba coloured TV that a friend of mine still got. A little Toshiba, about 6-inch coloured TV was one of the items. And that Atari 2600 was the other item. And I went home and I think I had Combat Game with it, that Combat Game that used to come with it. I think that was already in the box. I'm not 100% certain, but that was one of the games I had. And of course, go home and play that. And it was a good game at the time. The biplanes used to shoot down and everything, and the tanks. It wasn't a bad game, you know what I mean? It's obviously something new. These graphics pretty good. These are like superb graphics. These are pretty good graphics, you know, coming to today's standards. They're rubbish kind of thing, but it's like seeing something like it's pretty much when how the TVs have evolved. You've gone from a standard definition at the time you thought was quite acceptable, you know, it's a good picture, to HD, which you thought, oh, this is absolutely fantastic, to 4K, this is even better. It's that progression, like it is with the video games. You know, you started off with these very pixelated pixels, and you're getting up to today's PlayStation 5, which is nearly realistic, not quite there yet, but getting quite realistic now. So at the time, these were fantastic graphics, and so of course the next thing is to save up and to go and get another cartridge, because there's plenty of cartridges about. So I'm trying to wrap this video up as quickly as possible now and try and bring this game into it very, very briefly as well. But yeah, so you progress through the cartridge. You know, I've got Space Invaders, you had to get Space Invaders. Now at the time, they said, and this bloke would say to me, Space Invaders is coming out next week. It's exactly the same as it is in the arcade. Of course, being a fan of the arcade Space Invaders, you can't wait to get that game, that cartridge. Of course, you get it home and you realise that cartridge isn't the same as the game in the arcade. The graphics is not as good. They're a bit more opened out, a bit more squashed than that, and it's not as good. It's not an exact copy of that Space Invaders in the arcade. He said Asteroids is coming out. Of course, I've got Asteroids. That's another game where in the arcade there was them kind of vector graphics. You got it home on the VCR, and it's them fielding graphics. It was all right. It weren't, you know, it was pretty good. It was pretty good to have it in your home. But the way things were touted may be that you're going to get exactly the same copy as the arcade into your house. It sounded like that, but when you actually got the cartridge home, it was a bit of a different story. And one of my favourite games in there was not Space Invaders, it was Superman. A fantastic little game, running around doing tasks, and that was flying about with your cape and that, going in phone boxes and picking up mending bridges and all that. It was quite a good game. That was one of my favourite games on that system. Anyway, I bought this, I was waiting there talking to him, and they said, well, next week a keypad thing's coming out and you can program your own games. You can program your own Space Invaders, your own Asteroids and that. And of course, this is fantastic. Can't wait to get hold of this cartridge, you know what I mean? So saved up for it, whatever it was I did at the time, sold a few things, etc. Back down there, get this cartridge home. And got it home, and when you plugged it in, you suddenly realised all these expectations of me actually programming a game, which was, at the time, would have been, you know, it was one of my must-dos, you know what I mean? I've got to be able to program a game. That'd be fantastic, that'd be absolutely brilliant, that'd be absolutely amazing, even though I knew nothing about programming whatsoever. And I pretty much don't know a lot about it now today, to be honest with you. I know a little bit, and this is where this game comes in here, I'm going to show you very shortly. Is that I thought I'd be able to program my own game on that system, but that was soon fizzled out, and you know, basically doing hardly anything with that cartridge. It was so cumbersome typing in the words or whatever I had to do at the time, that cartridge got no use at all whatsoever. So that was my kind of like, and obviously over the period of time I used to buy some extra games for it and that, but so that's my little story of swapping that VCR and getting this Atari 2600 that got me into computer games for a fair period afterwards. And I'm going to go do a few other videos and talk about how I progressed from that Atari 2600 to seeing the machine which looked absolutely unbelievable, which was the Intellivision. So I'm going to do that in the next chapter. But going back to me programming them games, it did eventually happen in a small way. I programmed a few small games, nothing that really took off, because it's, you know, it's a vast minefield out there, millions and millions and millions and millions of people programming their own games. But this is one little game that I did do on the PC, so I just thought I'd show it to you just to end this little part of these video series. So until the next time, I'll say thanks for watching, and I'll leave you with a little clip of this game here called Po Yang. I'll turn the sound up a bit, not that there's much to listen to. Now this is on the PC, but I did do a few little other games as well, just to quickly mention, that I brought out on Android, but they sold none basically, so I took them off, but just a couple, which took me quite a while to do. This didn't take that long. The idea behind this game is one of my another favourite game, going back, that I programmed probably about 6 or 7 years ago. I think I programmed this, just, you know, kind of updated it really, where the, you know, the graphics in the old Po Yang weren't so good, so I just upgraded the graphics here a bit, but it wasn't me actually done the graphics, it was someone else who done the graphics for me, these characters and that. Oh no, tell me what, I did do these characters, but he did a few other bits and pieces for me. So yeah, so this is the game Po Yang, that I did. But I will show you a few other games during the course of this little series that, like I say, I thought I'd take a break from actually doing the HiFi. But anyway, I'll say, yet again, I'll say thanks for watching, and I'll see you all soon.